Good morning, Matrix traders. You're watching Trading in the Matrix, episode number 10. This is a video series where I pick out a single stock, cryptocurrency, or currency pair to take an in-depth analysis and give you guys my thought process behind the rationale or the conclusion that I've come to. Standard disclaimer, I do not present this to be the only analysis, the best analysis, or the most complete. I always encourage you to have a look at what other analysts might have to say to get more of a complete picture. Nevertheless, let's get started. This week, and in this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at two pairs, Aussie and New Zealand dollar, with both having strong correlation between each other, just especially with their economies and geographical location being as similar as they are. Things that take effect on one usually have an effect on the other. So in saying that, we'll start off with taking a look at Aussie dollar and what I expect to see in the coming few months. So if we were to take a look at the weekly chart, I'm going to be spending most of the video having a look at this down piece over here. So we'll go ahead and do that. So with the daily time frame, if you have been watching Aussie and following that, let me just get this over here. So it's pretty evident here at the moment that this is our first impulse down. We've had a large sideways correction, and this being a trend continuation or the following impulse to continue down. Within this impulse, you can see the completed corrections as they are. I'll go back and actually label these individually. So what I think's happened at the top here is we've had our ABC with a flat pattern like so. With this final piece being one of two, we can either be looking at this as a flat pattern itself with the respective A, B, and C waves individually here. That does make the most sense, with this obviously being the top here. And then we do have this move to the downside, another flat pattern over here, with this continuing to fall. Within this sideways correction, this is pretty straightforward. We've got our trend line over here, we've got our WXYZ. This is our first large corrective structure, with these two just being sharp pullbacks. This being the sharp pullback here. This being a sharp pullback here. And then this piece over here, there's two ways you can be looking at. Either this is a large expanding flat that's played out, or this is just a sharp pullback as evident. Following on from that, we do have a move to the downside. I'll just move to the 8 hours. Gives me some more data that's going to help showing you guys what I'm looking at. The first thing I'd like to note is that we do have this impulse to the downside. The trend line itself is actually valid to this point over here, with this low. With this piece over here, I'll just circle that for you guys. So this is the low over here. What I would like to also do for now, I'm just going to be drawing this trend line up to here because I would like to take a look at what's happened here. So as you see, so this is a pullback thing internally. After this strong and continued down move that we have here, we do have our first sharp impulse that comes up, and that is represented within that time frame there. The first thing that's going to point out to me is that is potentially a first reversal sign, either that being the first impulse up, or that is our A wave with a corrective pattern to play out. I am looking at this as an A wave. Obviously, with the fact that it's broken the low, this can't actually be the impulse. I am looking at this to also be our B wave, and I am looking at this to come down here. At the moment, I do believe there is enough reason. So the first thing I'm going to do is just connect these two tops. So I'm going with the bias that this is our A, this is our B, and then we are in or completing our C wave at the moment. This is, I believe that there's enough reason to believe it. This is our B wave, just with the corrective way that this has gone down. It hasn't really been as impulsive up or as impulsive down as you see here. So you can see if this was the impulse, if this was our impulse down, this is definitely not, this definitely doesn't have the same characteristics as such. We can see that there is a lot of sideways movements on the way down. And with that being said, so this is our B wave, and then our current, I'm looking at a C wave. If we were to go to a 4-hour time frame, there's a few possibilities that I'm looking at. The first is that we're actually completed the C wave, which would mean that we are in a contracting flat. This is obviously risky to call, but I'd like to talk to you about the reasons as to why that is. So if we're looking at a 4-hour time frame, in respect to this height over here and this height over here, the corresponding MACDs. So this is our highest peak over here. So we got our A, B, C, and then we do have this long pullback, and then a movement up to the top. If we were to look again at the B waves and also just draw a horizontal, that obviously is the peak. So there is the argument that this is now our ABC on a 4-hour time frame. However, on the 4-hour time frame, it's the only time frame that actually does show the divergence between these two. The daily, the 6-hour, and the 8-hour all do show that there is no divergence between this peak and this peak, which gives one of two things. This is maybe our W, our X, and our Y. We might be doing something here to go up more. However, I'm not looking at that for a few reasons. The first one, with this more aggressive trend line, we do have the break of that trend line, and the market does look like to consolidate. Another reason is, and this is just trying to draw conclusions with the fundamentals, or actually what's happening within the economy. Australia's been going through some tragic and devastating bushfires, which is obviously going to have effect on the economy as a whole, especially with the agriculture that's been destroyed. It would have an impact on farmers and subsequent economy. Within the actual move down itself, you can see this is the setup within itself. I actually missed this. I wasn't paying too close of attention. We actually do have a 15-minute, so this is our first 15-minute impulse down. We have our ABC over here, and then outside of this flat, we do have our corrective pattern. This screams sell setup. So if you guys actually caught this, this is fantastic. Another reason why I do believe it's the end of the C wave and the completion of a daily flat pattern is with the size that this is moved down. This isn't the same, I wouldn't really call it the same magnitude or the same speed at which is the previous is moved down. Although they do look kind of similar, you can see this one's had impulse pullbacks and then this slowly dropped with more corrections, and then this being the ending of that, or the dying, or the ending of the actual momentum before continuing up. Furthermore, on the 1 hour, we can see the continued divergence throughout. If I just draw a horizontal here, you can see that this piece, or the first piece that actually moved up, which is here, has greater MACD than the rest of the pieces that have followed. So with that being said, if we were to call this the end of the C wave, what we could expect is that once the market does break this low, this trend line will obviously be moved to over here, with expected play out in the coming weeks is more downside, maybe some more correction, even a pullback to this current makeshift trend line, before more continuing down, and this to obviously break that low to make the contracting flat pattern valid. So at the moment, it is slightly a bit risky to be calling this a contracting flat. However, I do believe there is enough reasons for us to call this the contracting flat. So what you can expect to see from Aussie is some more sideways over here for us to get in and actually go low. Obviously, if this isn't complete, what we would see is a strong reversal and a continuation to break the top. If that is the case, then we shouldn't be receiving or we shouldn't have any sell setups present. The market should just reverse from here and continue to go up to break the top. Reasons for that is for this to be called a C wave, you can see obviously by the characteristics of the A wave, it's extremely impulsive in nature. It's just a 1, 2, 3. This is a similar 1, 2, 3. Obviously, part 2 is much longer than part 1 or the part 2 of the A wave. So those are the dissimilarities within that. But that's okay. It's the A's and C's are never going to be exactly the same. So what I'm expecting is more continued downside with Aussie dollar. Okay, let's take a move across to New Zealand dollar now. We'll start on the weekly. Okay, similar to what's happened with New Zealand, with Aussie, sorry. We'll start from the top here. And again, I'm just going to be looking at this downside movement to give us more of a picture. We have our first impulse down, with this being the highest. We have a very sharp and deep pullback with the flat pattern, or complex flat pattern, all the way up to the beginning of that impulse. It never broke the top, and then we did have our reversal. Following that reversal, just move to the daily. We've had a running flat pattern. The running flat pattern has a slow crawl up within the A wave. We've got our 1, 2, 3 over here. The reasons I'm looking at this is the internal B wave, with this being the A and the C, or this would actually be a WXY on this time frame. But you can see within this piece over here, the characteristics. We have our A, we have our 1, 2, 3 is our B, and then we have our C wave up. That's the reason I am calling this the B wave. Obviously, you then have the following of this and this to complete the pattern, and then an impulsive C wave up. Very similar in the style that this correction was completed, is this following impulse. We have our elongated or our very slow A wave that goes up. We have our 1, 2, 3 that's less complex than the one previous, and then our C wave up for this to continue down. Now, the current structure that I see playing out, Aussie, I'm calling it as the contracting flat and that it's finished. With the high correlation between the two charts, sometimes they'll move exactly at the same time. Sometimes Aussie will take longer or New Zealand will take longer to complete that same move. So in respect to that, I am also looking at this downside move. However, I don't think that the actual C wave itself is completed. The reasons I don't believe that it's actually completed is the lack of divergence within the move up. So on all time frames, this piece over here has the highest MACD. We're just starting to get a crossover over here. We're just starting to get our crossover over here. So what I'm expecting within this C wave is some more sideways and more up before this continues to go up. If you wanted to take a look at the actual internals of this, I'm looking at my A. We have our first move down, then this is our B wave here, with the internal B wave looking like a 1, 2, 3. That being the A, that means the first contracting, first correction, second correction, and then the third correction within here. This whole corrective piece I'm looking at as our B wave. If I was to guess where the C wave ends, just by connecting the tops over here, we can see, I guess, a reversal at any point on the way up to here. I'd like to see this top, or this current top, within the C wave to be broken first. If we go to lower on 4 hours, again, you can see that there is no divergence within this current C wave move up. Actually, we do have a little bit of divergence on the 4 hours, with this being the highest. However, it's not as large, or the discrepancy between the two peaks isn't as large as what we've seen on the Aussie. And the way in which this is moved up, there has been no corrective pieces. This has just been a very strong move up. Whereas Aussie, if you remember, there was that one, then we had that deeper pullback, and then there was like more corrections on the way up, like so. In that, there's more reason to believe the actual momentum has died out, because you've seen these larger corrections. With this current New Zealand C wave up, we just have a 1, 2, 3, and then a continued pull up. So in the next coming weeks, I could see this doing something similar to here before breaking this top. Once we've broken this top, again, I'm not looking for any buys at the moment on New Zealand. I'm looking to sell this, so I don't want to be jumping back and forth between the buys and the sells, just because sometimes when you do that, you do tend to miss the setup. So a bit more to the upside before that total reversal down. What that would create on a higher time frame, this is our W or potential A, this is our B, this is our C, this could be a W also, an X, this to be our Y for more downside, or this could be our A B, and a C for a completion, and then for us to see up. The completion that I'm talking about is current. This is our first move up, impulse, no divergence. Well, there is a bit of divergence, so that's why we're seeing the correction. This total piece would be a WXY with a bit messy. One sec. Go to there. So this would be our WXY. It's Y because there is no divergence here. This is an internal ABC. Another move down, another correction, another move down, possibly another correction, possibly another move down. Or we can see this being the finish. We draw a trend line such as this. Obviously, we've had an actual reversal on that. So there's really two options. We're either going to be seeing more up, or we're going to be seeing a reversal. I think that there's more up, just because of the fact there is no internal divergence in the 4 hours. With that trend line itself being valid, but we'll have to see what happens there. If we were to see anything play out here, I'd like to see a correction, not pulling back to the height of this, and then sell this down. If this does start to pull back up and retrace a high amount of that first impulse down, I'd look to see for this and then one more up. So the sells, regardless if we break the top, that's what I'm looking for. We're either going to get one more up, or we're going to get a corrective structure within here in the next week. If we do get that corrective structure, you can bank on that being the start of the downside. If we don't, and I think we're not, especially because of the pattern line here, because if we were to finish this and finish it here, I'd have to be calling this like that. That means I'm going to be cutting quite a few candles there. So although that higher trend line does look like it's hit the spot over here, this could just be a reaction of that higher time frame trend line to get some sellers into the market so they miss out on the larger move. That's it for episode number 10 of Trading in the Matrix. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one.